I'm a sergeant with the Maine Warden Service. Currently live in Greenville and manage, supervise 6 game wardens from Greenville and Moosehead Lake region north of the Golden Road. I lived in Oxford County until I was about 9. My dad's family are a bunch of big old poaching family from there. And then on the other side, my mother's family's from Washington County, and so a bunch of Washington County poachers as well. They always say most good game wardens come from poaching families. They had all stopped by the time, my grandfathers had all stopped by the time I was hunting age, so I was never saw it, but I heard a lot of the stories, and but it instilled a love for hunting. I mean, I can't smell pipe tobacco without thinking about going and walking through the woods with my grandpa Polland. What a great place to grow up. You know, you always had woods to play in. And until you live in another state, which I did for quite a few years, and you're now hunting on military reservations, you know, on military installations, because the only place that you can find to hunt, you don't realize how blessed Mainers have it. So after 9/11, I decided I need to take a break from training horses. I need to serve my country. I enlisted with an airborne option. I wanted to go to the 82nd and get a combat deployment in. And I did. They were deploying quite quickly. And I went to Afghanistan, supported the first elections in 2005 in Afghanistan with the 82nd, and that was outstanding. In 2006, I had another deployment come up with the 82nd. I ran a sensitive site exploitation team, which is we'd air assaults. We take helicopters into the triangle. Triangle is Tikrit, Baghdad, Fallujah. And we would hit these rural areas at night by helicopter, and we'd lock down an area for 4 days, calling people out of houses. And my job and my role in the team that I led, I was a sergeant at the time, was to document crime scenes. What was supposed to be a 4-month deployment ended up being 18 months. So my wife and I started talking about, hey, do we just get married while I'm on R&R? And God knows what he's doing. So we did that. We got married in July of 2007. And 3 weeks later, I'm back in Iraq. I'm on a first or second mission back. And my team and I would go pick up a resupply. We'd be in country for, we'd be on mission for 4 days. Normally, in any type of military situation, the person in charge of the element, the supervisor, is in the passenger seat. And they manage the maps and the communication. But we were using locals pickup trucks. We'd give them $100, borrow their truck. So they're standards, and kids don't know how to drive stick. So it would usually be myself or the first sergeant. So the 2 senior guys would be the ones driving. And that night, happened to be me and my team. First sergeant stayed back. The other person would stay back and manage the patrol base. And we're coming back, and we drove over so I'm driving, we drove over a 155 mortar round in a Kia pickup truck. I won't drive a Kia. It says KIA. But Specialist Donovan with him was in my passenger seat. He was where I should have been. And he died immediately. It ripped him in 2. And while they were going over the crime scene, the scene of the blast, there was another mortar sitting in the berm on my passenger door that never went off. I don't remember the incident. I don't remember beforehand or after. Myself and another guy, Mark Bill, were medevaced back to the U.S. I mean, we were injured pretty badly. But God knew what was going on. Like he had spoke to my mother, who said, maybe you and Jesse should get married while you're on leave. The Army treats a wife differently than they do a girlfriend. I spent 10 years on active duty in the military. And after traveling around, I wanted to get out of the military, and I decided that conservation law enforcement with my skill set was what I wanted to do. My wife's from the Midwest, so we thought about settling in the Midwest, but I asked her if we could apply for Maine, and at least one time, and I got picked up on my first job, and that's why we ended up being able to come back home to my home state of Maine. Like in the springtime, Memorial Day is probably my favorite weekend, even more so than hunting season. It's the first big push for fishing season. So what I always do is Memorial Day is extremely important to me as it's different than Veterans Day because it's to honor our service members that have died. So normally the week before Memorial Day, I'll print off my 11 friends that we lost in Iraq in 2006 and 2007. I'll print off a picture of all of them and put them in a protected plastic coating, and I'll go put them in all my fishing spots and all the boat launches ahead of Memorial Day, kind of in honor of them. When I joined the Maine Warden Service, it was Joel Wilkinson was the colonel at the time. He was a great colonel, and it was very important in the academy that we learned how important it was to support the state, the people of the state, and that the Fish and Wildlife didn't have a voice. It was up to us to be extremely proactive. And there was a sense of pride. I think that's what I learned in the academy more than anything else, was what an honor it was to be a game warden and what the job truly entailed. And there's been some great mentors from that time frame, great Christian men that I still, that now we're peers. Like, they were training me and now we're sergeants together. And they really instilled that sense of mission. And it was great. I mean, I came to Greenville. I got to Beaver Cove District right out of the academy, and I hit the ground running, wanting to just sleep out in the woods and work fishing game. The Warden Service is the face of the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. We're the ones interacting with people on a daily basis, and it's a big role. We're expected to represent our department well. In the past 11 years, noticed a big change with the change in administration. The Commissioner of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife is appointed by the governor. And when Governor Mills came in, she made it very clear, you can do the research, that she was going to make putting females in roles one of her goals. And you'll see that with a lot of her commissioners and department heads. And our commissioner, Judy Camuso, has been very vocal about the fact that her goal is to get the department to 50% females. And I was raised by a single mom. My wife works full-time while raising kids. My sister was an Army officer. I love strong, independent women. But this department has now put pushing that agenda over the quality of the people, and it's really made it a big part of its mission. When I came on, I believe there were 2 females out of 125. There's definitely a political agenda. I mean, just in the past few years, we've had multiple events that focused on the LGBTQ community, and the department has spent a significant amount of money on merchandise for that. And I can't answer to why someone would do that, but it's definitely affecting the morale. All the things that I've mentioned are affecting the morale. Not just for myself, but there are other supervisors that have reached out to the colonel and explained the morale is the lowest it's ever been. There's been the big push, obviously, from the commissioner's office to get the female staff to 50%. And but the LGBTQ push really stepped up a notch last year when they had, and I don't know what it was officially called, we were told it was going to be an LGBTQ fishing derby. But we absolutely had an outreach coordinator for the department, and they had merchandise that had the department logo on a LGBTQ flag. There were hats, jackets, and this department personnel stating, I'm at such and such a state park with an extremely offensive name. You know, so-and-so is at such and such a state park with Let a Dick in. And nothing happened. I mean, I believe that if a straight conservative male, posted some type of photo in a department uniform with an obscene name somewhere, they'd probably get called into HR. But instead, what this department did is they buckled down. And there is now the easy up tents that you take, every barbecue has one. The department has an easy up tent that the entire top of it is the LGBTQ flag with a department logo on it. And there's jackets and there's stickers and car decals. And they've buckled down to going to all of these different events. My secretary, who's a great friend of ours, just a wonderful person, told me the other day she's sitting on $70,000 of airplane bills just from our division that can't be paid. But we're spending $10,000 on this merchandise. We have currently had 2 females last week out of state at a women and law enforcement convention. But the people that are going out to calls tonight to maybe rescue your relative, they're getting paid comp time. It just shows you where the decision making has come. And the department buckled down. And then they went ahead and had another event this year. They call it an extravaganza. And they brought the same person in, Letta Dickin. And the other person, I'm as someone with 10 years active duty, I feel ashamed that I missed it, because the military is known for having a perverse sense of humor. And I showed it to a friend of mine at drill last week. He's like, "Oh, that other guy's name is Ifila Johnson." And I was like, "Oh, wow, I missed that one." And the department posted these. And there's pictures of both years, these people, men dressed up in obscene outfits to look like a cartoonish women, who are being pulled on by snowmobiles and canoes by department personnel who are wearing that merchandise that I explained earlier. A bunch of our retirees, they can have a voice because you can't take their pension. And 101 retiree who's dealt with the liberal media in the past, he wrote a letter to the commissioner and he CC'd 125 retirees. And there's been some pushback in the department. People have tried to have a voice. And what happened was the colonel sent out an email that at the very top said, "Do not forward." And he took some responsibility. He said, "We shouldn't have done this. It wasn't a good choice." And an hour later, an email came from the commissioner's office. And in her opinion was, this was one of the most successful events we've ever had. And if that tells you where your voice is going to be, you can push back, but in her mind, this was not an embarrassment. She doesn't care about the department employees that now have to interact with the public that get questioned about this. This is an 80-20 issue. We hear about it all the time. It's an 80% of the state does not believe that the department should be doing this and should be focusing our resources on this. We have wardens that just want to focus on protecting fish and game, protecting the public, the people in Maine, right? And now they have to go to speaking engagements and get confronted and people ask him about this. It's embarrassing. Just the other day, one of our wardens showed up to a regional office, and overnight, someone who's an employee that's is very well connected with the outreach coordinator that put on these events, put a bunch of the stickers, LGBTQ flag stickers with the department logo next to the coloring books that the department leaves for kids out on the front entranceway. They made it very clear what their agenda is. As a parent, as a Christian, as a conservative, but just as a human being, the department should not be pushing this political agenda on anyone, but let alone our children. You have females, good females, like really good females that, they're mandated to be on a promotion or a hiring board, even though they've only been on the job a year, because we have to have females on boards now. There's a mandate that females have to be involved in everything. And even if they don't have the experience yet, and from their perspective is sometimes they're being told that's embarrassing for them. Like they know, and they've told people, I'm only here because I'm a female. That's embarrassing for them. And our job should be to go support fish and wildlife and protect the people of the state of Maine. You should always be willing to hire the best qualified candidate. But when you start forcing any of your, we could call them DEI policies, whether you're trying to hire for race or gender, whenever you force that on it, it not only affects the quality of people that you're putting in. The military is a great example of it. We've tried to remove PT standards, and you remove certain standards and make it non-gender based. But then when you do that, it's so low that it's too easy for the males and still hard for the women. And instead of just accepting that there are there might be some different standards on physical fitness. And it affects morale when a warden, multiple senior wardens, have their annual expectations, and they know that the female next to them has lower expectations than them and receives good evals every year. And it's not her fault. Like, that is not that female's fault. It's the fault of the department for allowing that. The mandate's been very clear from the top for years that we will support these people, that it doesn't matter if they're performing well or if they're performing poorly. It doesn't matter even if they have a good attitude. And I've dealt with that personally with someone who has an extremely bad attitude and has for years with multiple supervisors. It has been made very clear by the commissioner's office, you will not hold these people accountable. In December of 2023, I got promoted to sergeant. In the very first week, I had that senior female over the phone, the first phone call, telling me she didn't feel comfortable meeting with me. She repeated it again the next day, and I forwarded those complaints to HR, and HR addressed them immediately. From that time on, there have been false allegations about arrests that I've made. I've tried to ask the department to follow up on these because I feel like if they're lying, they should be held accountable. And 4 or 5 months into my promotion with constant pushback, I've supervised over 90 people in my last 20 years in the military and at the Warden Service. And I understand how to manage difficult people. We knew this was going to be difficult going in. And I kept my chain of command. I kept HR like up to date on everything. I took good notes. I even had to start recording things to protect myself and interactions. And 5 months into my job as a sergeant, it was every day. Every interaction was like this. I had a meeting, my lieutenant and I had a meeting with our command staff and the Director of Human Resources. So that would be the Director of Human Resources, who's a female, the colonel, the major, and the captain. Those are the top 3 people in the department, and the Warden Service, and that's called the command staff. And we had a meeting, my lieutenant and I had a meeting with them that lasted a couple hours, and they said, no, this needs to be addressed. Go ahead and issue multiple counselings to this female. And those are not disciplinary, it's just addressing the problem. This is an issue, you violated policy, you were disrespectful, this is how we're gonna move forward. And I did that, and that warden filed a complaint to the department, saying I was treating her differently because she was a female. The colonel and HR, they took it. I don't think none of us were too worried about it. We knew it would probably happen. And then the commissioner, Camuso, found out about the complaint. And myself and multiple supervisors were mandated to provide notes. And then the commissioner initiated a harassment investigation into me based on something that I had already been pre-approved to do. That started in end of April, first part of May, and went through mid-September, end of September. And it was outside of losing friends in combat. It was the most stressful year of our life. It was hard, not just for me, but for my family. Greenville's a small community. You can't go to the grocery store without running into people. And people that I supervise got called in and got interviewed. Other females that I work with, I was told very soon that this wouldn't be a harassment investigation because there was nothing to indicate I treated this warden differently, being a female. But I promise you it was a harassment investigation because they actually started interviewing other females that I work with to determine if I treated them differently. They even would ask him questions like, does he mansplain? Which I find is kind of a derogatory statement. And both of the other females that were spoken with, no, Josh treats us well. We've worked with him for years. We don't hear him treat women. We don't know nothing about how he treats women poorly. And the investigation, but it was stressful. Warden, I got to the point where didn't feel comfortable working with my own people I supervise because I found out they were getting pulled in to get investigated. It was tough. I would run things up to HR, like, how do you want me to handle this? And it would take the director of HR a week to tell me if I could have a section meeting. And my thought was, how am I as a sergeant supposed to make these decisions if the Director of Human Resources takes a whole week to figure out the proper way to handle it? At the end of the day, I ruined an elk hunt that I had in Montana. I go out every few years with my friends, and, that investigation was still pending when I went out there. And I found out they actually called me on vacation to tell me that it had been completely unsubstantiated, which was good. It's bittersweet, right? Because I did find out, but it ruined my hunt. Friends, good Christian men that I have spent years going out with. But I got back, and I think we were okay with that. We'd been praying a lot. God, what do you want us to do with this? What's your plan for us? Do you want us to demote? Do we stick it out and fight and be the one that is strong enough to do what is right? And that decision was really made clear to me when the commissioner finally met with me on October 1st of 2024. At this point, she had met with the female warden 2 times previously over the course of 5 hours. And the colonel had asked her why she was meeting with the female warden and not me. And she was told, I can meet with whoever I want to meet with. My union representative asked the commissioner, do you think that maybe you should have met with Josh during this investigation? It appears biased. And we were again told, no, I can meet with whoever I want to. But it was made very clear that the wording on the complaint and the wording that the female was using, words like flash anger and lash out, which I'd never even heard the term flash anger, and I'd never had anyone say I lash out. But those 2 terms that this warden kept using over and over again were now on October 1st being repeated to me by the commissioner. She started out the conversation with, the investigation's completely unsubstantiated, but. And she proceeded to tell me all the things that she felt I could have done differently. She never held the female accountable for anything. Her biggest complaints were that I stopped recording. I stopped taking such thorough notes. And when you read the final report, you'll see how often my recording or my notes really protected me. And I tried to explain to her, I only recorded because the lieutenant and I, this warden has told the lieutenant and I that she takes notes and she keeps files on her supervisors. So I feel like it would only be smart for me to also keep good notes. So at the end of that meeting, it was a hard meeting. And my union rep and I asked if we could have a break between that meeting and maybe take a week before our next meeting, because the next meeting was going to have the deputy commissioner, the major, my lieutenant, and also this warden and their union representative. And my union representative said, this warden got a chance when you spoke with them last. They've had multiple weeks to accept the end of the investigation and to find a way to move forward. But you're telling Josh that he needs to change all these things, and you're giving him about 1 hour before he goes into this next meeting. He doesn't get to meet with his lieutenant or talk it over with him. And the commissioner said, no, I'd like to get this over with. And at that point, I was still, it wasn't easy, but it was okay. I went into this next meeting, and 2/3 of the meeting was spent with the commissioner, the deputy commissioner, and the major talking about removing 2 of the 3 counselings that had already been pre-approved by the command staff and adjusting this warden's eval to make it more positive. My lieutenant refused to sign the eval at that point because some of the things that were being asked to put in were not accurate. And that's what I had to sit. I sat there and I tried to speak a couple times, and the commissioner would interrupt me and correct me. 2/3 of the way through, I asked for a break. I told my union representative, I'm done. I'm done speaking because every time I try to speak, I'm cut off. I don't have a voice here. And that was made even more clear by the fact that the colonel had not been invited to the meeting. He had pushed back quite hard. He can retire. So he had pushed back very hard at times during this investigation. And he had not been invited to the last 2 meetings. So the person with the most rank in my organization within the Warden Service was not even allowed at these meetings because he had supported me. And so at this point, I just kind of when I didn't say as much. And when the commissioner would ask me questions, I'd just say to her, ma'am, I'll have to speak with my union representative about that. And at the end of the meeting, this warden, the female warden, they were continuing to talk about her expectations and her evaluations. And she said in front of the whole room, she asked if her supervisor, meaning me, would have expectations to treat her politely and respectfully. And I looked at the major, and lower than the tone that I'm speaking now, I said, are you serious, sir? You're going to let her just say that? Like, the investigation determined that I treated her politely and respectfully. You're just going to let her say that? And he just looked at me. He can't retire, and he has a lot of kids. He's a good man. He's a good man, but he does not have a voice in that room. And the meeting ended. I got up, and I waited till that warden left, and I walked over to my lieutenant and my major, and I said, I'm done. I can't believe that you're allowing this to happen. I don't feel supported. I don't feel safe supervising. And I walked out, and I sent them a message, and we met down at the headquarters. I said I'd only talk with them. And I explained to them my concerns, that I didn't feel safe anymore because of the commissioner's extremely biased involvement in this investigation. And there's too much to go into in one, short interview, and probably it's hard to understand all at once what this year was like. But I told them, I said, I don't feel safe, and I'm filing a hostile work environment complaint. And I submitted all the paperwork, and I took the month of October off. I went and met with my doctor, and that was October 1st. And HR did not even respond to my hostile work environment complaint until December 31st, which seems very different from the immediate phone call that they would give to the female for just saying, I don't feel comfortable. I knew then that we were going to have to make some major changes in our life, because my family and I could not go through another investigation every time that this warden got upset and wanted to say this. I'm the fifth male that they've said, and I have it documented in my investigation, I'm the fifth male that they've said I don't feel comfortable with to HR, but then that's all they'll do. I'm the second male that they've made false allegations about their arrests. I could lose my job for some of the things that get alleged in their faults, and we can prove their faults. Same with another male warden, and we asked the department to follow up on it, and they don't. They won't hold this person accountable with this agenda and the level that they will go. They're censuring people on the floor in the main the house, right? If they can do that, think of the power that they can bring on to a state employee who might not have a voice. So it's not easy. The Bible doesn't say that doing what's right and following Jesus Christ will be easy. But every day that it was bad, no matter how stressful it got, I thought to myself, and I'd say it to my wife when she'd be stressed, I'd say, but we're not an 80-year-old lady peacefully sitting outside of an abortion clinic who got sentenced to prison for 10 or more years. So if you think the injustice that we're feeling is bad, it's worse, and it's compounded all throughout this country. I don't know what we'd have done without our faith this year. This has brought our family closer together, for sure. The boys were actually all baptized together this summer. My middle one had a wonderful testimony about peer pressure and having the strength. To do what's right. I don't know what we would have done without our small group, my pastor and my small group leader. They served as my counselors this year. That's who I'd go talk with. Now's the time to have a voice and to stand up for yourself and for your community and for the state. I definitely feel there's hope for Maine. I think we're seeing it on a national level, that people realize that you can speak up, and that I think we'll say the left, just for lack of a better word, the extreme left has gone so far one way that common sense is starting to reveal itself. And I think there is hope for Maine, but not if people sit quietly on the sidelines and you need to reach out and have a voice.